Hello and welcome back. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add an ear piercing to a person in Adobe Photoshop. More specifically, I'm going to show you how to add an earplug sort of ear piercing. I got a private message from somebody who wanted to see this tutorial, so I hope that this is what you needed. So the first thing that you want to do is open up your image in Adobe Photoshop. If that's you, great. If not, great too. But go ahead and open up that image in Adobe Photoshop and zoom in on your ear or ears that, well, one at a time, but zoom in on the ear that you want to add that plug to. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want to find a piercing or a plug that you want to add to that ear. I've already found one, and I've actually added it to this document here. So if I zoom out and then activate this layer here, you can see that I've found this plug here that I'm going to use. You can use anything that you want. It doesn't need to be in somebody's ear already, because I'm going to go ahead and edit that out when we get a little further along. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make that layer invisible for now, and I'm going to select my original image and go ahead and make a copy of that layer. So with that background layer selected, I'm going to press Ctrl-J on my keyboard to make a copy. The other way you could do that is just click and drag that down into your New Layers button down there. And that would also make a copy. Once again, the reason we do this is so that we have a copy of our original image, so that if I make some kind of mistake, I can always go back to the original and start over. I can rename this layer piercing or something. And we'll move on. The next thing that I want to do is zoom in on the ear, like I said before, and then go ahead and go up to Filter and down to Liquify. Looks like we're gonna have to go ahead and zoom in on the ear again here. You can press Control plus and Control minus for hotkeys for this function. But in the Liquify function here, there's a lot of different settings over to the left that you can play around with, but the one that we want right now is the bloat tool. And you want to go ahead and set the size of that brush so it's a little bit bigger than the earlobe right now. You can change the brush size over here. I have mine set to 92, but you just yours might be a little different depending on your image. But what you want to do is you want to kind of bloat the earlobe to make it look like it's been kind of stretched out as kind of a plug piercing would do. So go ahead and just kind of bloat that area a little bit and kind of keep it as round as possible. Alright, and that should be about right for the piercing that I selected. As you can see, there's a little bit of warping that happens to the hair and possibly to the face. I can show you how to fix that in 1 second. But if it's not too bad, you might just leave it. But I'll go ahead and click OK for now on here. And as you can see, as that rendered, you didn't see too much of a difference there between the original image and the ear. But let me just show you how you would fix that if it was a little bit too drastic of a warp. Like say it curved way in right here, which it doesn't really on this image, but just for the sake of showing you. What I did is I added a layer mask to that new copy of a layer that I made. And you can take your eraser and simply just erase areas away that you want to let show through. So for instance, if I wanted to, say this area was warped more than we wanted to, we could erase it and just show the original through there. But I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer mask and keep that bloat that we had before. The next thing that I want to do is go ahead and zoom out. So I'm going to press Control and then the minus button on my keyboard to zoom out. You can see that the ear is definitely a little bit bigger now. Also, the other way you can zoom out is click on the zoom tool in the toolbar and press Alt and then click on the screen, and that'll zoom you out too, by the way. The next thing that I want to do, though, is go ahead and click on that plug layer that I imported earlier. What you can do to import a layer, if you don't know how, is go up to File and down to Place, and then it'll ask you where you want to get your image from, and you go ahead and just find your image there and then place it on top of your document. Alright, so now I have this this piercing, and as you can see, the orientation of the ear is slightly off from the orientation of the ear I have in this image. So we're going to go ahead and try to fix that. I'm going to press Control T and just kind of the other way to do that is go up to Edit, down to Transform, and that brings up these kind of modifiers that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag this so that it's kind of in the same orientation of the ear, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on one of the corners and hold Shift so that I can make it a little smaller for the ear that we have. And you can see that it's still not quite right, so we can work on that a little bit, but it's probably just not going to be perfect. Okay, so I'm going to double click on that to place it, and I will cut it out now. So what I'll do is I'll make a layer mask here, and I'll click on my elliptical marquee tool. So the rectangular marquee tool is the one that's up by default. So if you go over to your tool palette and click and hold, you can select your elliptical marquee tool. If you press Shift and click and drag, you can get about the shape that you want for that plug. Okay, and that's what I have right now. You can kind of arrow that over, and I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see what I have selected. As you can see, it's not perfect, so one thing that we can do to help fix that is go up to, I believe it's Select, and down to Edit, Quick, Transform Selection, excuse me. So, and you can kind of change how that selection is on your image, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and double click to accept that, and I'll go up to Select and in the inverse because I'm going to want to delete everything but the plug. So I'll go ahead and press backspace to delete everything but the plug, and then press Control D on my keyboard to just kind of deselect everything. Okay, and then I'm just going to click and drag that plug right over the ear where I want to show the plug on the image that you've selected originally. As you can see, that's pretty much what you need right there, but it doesn't look 100% real. So what we can do is just double click on that plug layer, and what we kind of would want is probably a little shadow around the plug. So I think what I'll do is add a drop shadow, and then just make sure that the let me step back a little bit. I'm not sure I explained this too completely. So double click on that plug layer, and that brings up your layer styles. Go ahead and click on drop shadow, and then you'll see your drop shadow options over to the right here. Go ahead and click the distance. There's a slider. Make that 0. And then make the size a little bit bigger, and you can see that that just adds a little bit of a shadow back there. I'm going to add maybe about a 10 pixel shadow, and that's looking pretty good. A little bit more realistic, okay? You can take up the opacity a little bit if you want. Looks like that's looking pretty good actually, like that. So I'm going to take mine up to 100%. You're going to want to mess around with yours a little bit. And then I'm just going to click OK, and that'll apply that effect to that layer, okay? You can toggle those effects on here, and you can hide them and show them right here, okay? So I'll go ahead and zoom in, and I'll just show you that that's what it looks like up close. Now it's very pixely because I'm zoomed way in, so if you zoom out to kind of a reasonable amount where you don't see pixels anymore, it looks very real. It looks like this guy has got a plug ear piercing. Maybe the plug's a little bit too big, so I'll press Control T and just kind of hold Shift and click one of these corners and drag it down a little bit, and just kind of double click to make that apply, and then just drag it right into the middle of the ear there. And then, yeah, that looks pretty good. So that's essentially the end of the tutorial. I can go ahead and show you where we started here by going into my history and zooming out a little bit, because I actually did crop this image before I started this tutorial. So you can see that this is what we started with, and if I click on this, I can show you that this is what we ended with here. I can also I'll just show you like this too by deselecting layers, okay? So here is what we started with this ear, and with the bloat and cutting out the plug, this is what we ended with. So I hope you learned a lot from this tutorial. Please follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook.